What is happening, people? It is Brian Alsruhe, NEVERsate.com, and it is Black Friday, which means two things. The first of which that I actually edited this and put it out on time because today is not Black Friday, but if it is Black Friday when you're watching this, good job, me. We both know it probably won't be. And of course, second thing is that this is the chance, the one time of the year when people who are looking for specialty bars and gym equipment can save a whole lot of money. Now, the two companies that I'm specifically thinking about right now are going to be Rogue and Elite FTS, because that is where the majority of my equipment has come from, and both of them have massive Black Friday sales. So as you guys, I know some of you are in the market for looking for specialty bars, some of you have garage gyms, some of you are just looking to buy an SSB and take it to your gym with you. Whatever the case may be, all I want to do is just do a quick review of 5 specialty bars that are very common that people are looking at this time of year, and tell you guys whether I think they're worth it or not, what I use them for, and just kind of go from there. In the hopes that if you guys do end up throwing down some cash for a specialty bar, that you guys are not going to waste your money, because I may have in a couple situations. All right, so the first bar that I want to talk about is the Swiss bar or football bar. Now, this is a model from Rogue that has actually got a couple angled handles. I know a lot of football bars have straight handles and things like that. So wherever you're looking or whatever the case may be, all that I can really talk about is this one in particular as far as the grips and stuff. I can say that I love this bar, especially with a guy with shoulder injuries and being a kind of older lifter. A lot of times a barbell will hurt you just because of the external rotation cranking your shoulders when you're doing something like a bench press. And this is actually a really excellent way to isolate your triceps a little bit more, but also keep your elbows tucked so there's less pressure on your humerus, and it doesn't tear up your shoulders nearly as bad as a barbell. You also have a lot of options for closer grips, so it's not gonna slam your wrists up together like it would on a traditional barbell. I mainly use this thing for bench press. I do not like it for the overhead press because when you're down the bottom trying to come up, you will knock yourself in the chin and you need dental work. However, if you throw this thing in a rack for something like a pin press, I absolutely love that. That is terrific. Great way to isolate your triceps for a really, really heavy overhead press. I will occasionally use it for rows, which is kind of a nice switch up because you kind of have that semi-supinated neutral grip. But I would say overall, I definitely would recommend it. I would say for the money, I believe this thing is about $125 to $150. For the money, I would absolutely say this is worth it over many other specialty bars out there. All right, for the second bar that I'm gonna talk about, this is the SSB. Gracias, amigo.
De nada, pendejo.
That means Saint Nick in Spanish. But the second bar that I'm gonna talk about, like I was saying, is the Rogue SSB. Now, there are many versions of the SSB out there, particularly the other one that everyone typically buys is either Rogue SSB or the Elite FTS yoke bar, SS yoke bar, I believe it's called. I personally have never used the Elite version, the SS yoke bar, but what I do hear, being completely objective here, is that their padding is much better and holds up better. This, out of every specialty bar that I have bought, out of, I'd say 99% of gym equipment I bought, I would say this is at the top of my list for things that if I were going to restart a new gym, this is one of the first pieces of equipment I'd buy. I use it for so many different things, whether it just be straight SSB squats, arms wide, hands free, lunges, good mornings. Do a ton of stuff with this, super versatile. You can flip it around for front squats, a lot of different things. Chain yoke is a much safer option with this. However, like I said, the Rogue one, the only complaint that I will have about it, I love the bend in it, I love the camber, I love all the angles on it. The only thing that I will say is that the padding breaks down. And I'm not talking like a little wear and tear. I'm saying that we needed to take it apart and completely tape it up with Batman tape, obviously. But that's just to hold the thing together. Another point that I do not like a whole lot is I train a lot of women in my gym, and the arms are so wide that a lot of the women can't really use it because their shoulders are not broad enough. Now, the SS yoke bar apparently does have much better padding. I don't know if it addresses that issue or not, but as far as SSB goes, it will run you, I believe, around the mid-4s in price. However, both places run great Black Friday deals, and typically this is on there. I would highly recommend, if you're looking for a specialty bar out of all specialty bars, that's where I go. So yes, absolutely do recommend. All right, so the third bar that I want to talk about is the Texas deadlift bar. Now again, many different options of deadlift bars out there, and all a deadlift bar is basically they took a regular barbell, they stretched it out a little bit longer, gave it a little bit more flex, and they gave the knurling on it a little bit more of an aggressive bite. Now, what this is gonna do is basically allow you, some people, to lift more weight. There's pluses and minuses to using a deadlift bar. Number one, the plus is that if you can pull a little bit more for higher up, then it can usually make you get a little bit more pounds on your PR. If you're a guy more like me who gets weaker as you get closer to 18 inches, then I actually like a stiff bar better if I'm going for a PR because when I directly put pressure into it, it goes into the bar. This thing, you need to learn how to use it as a tool. So do I like the Texas deadlift bar? Do I like any deadlift bar? Yes, I absolutely do. But for a different reason than you might think. The reason why I like it is because a lot of times in strongman competitions, you will see a deadlift bar. In a couple powerlifting federations, you will see a deadlift bar. And it is a tool. You cannot just walk up to a deadlift bar and yank on it the same way you would on a stiff bar because you're gonna get two very different results. Typically, if you yank on a Texas deadlift bar, any deadlift bar in general, you're going to yank up, the bar is going to bend, it is going to have a counteraction and yank you back down, then the slack's gonna come out and then you start pulling. Now, that is something that is a learned skill. You need to learn how to pull more slack out of the bar than you normally would. If you have a competition with a Texas deadlift bar, any deadlift bar, I would highly recommend that you get a hold of it beforehand because it does change things a little bit. As far as if you want to buy a Texas deadlift bar so you can get a 5-pound PR on your deadlift, yeah, it's probably not worth the mid-4 price tag that you're gonna pay. So I would rather tell you just work on your technique a little bit, get a little bit stronger. But for me personally, it is worth it because so many of our people do strongman competitions, powerlift competitions where this thing is used a lot. So it is a tool that we need to learn, just like a circus dumbbell or a yoke. So yes, for me personally, worth it. For the average gym goer, I would say hold off. Which brings us to the fourth bar that I want to talk about, which is Chris Duffin's Duffalo bar. Now, before I get into the review of this bar, I really, really like Chris Duffin and I respect Chris Duffin and I love his stuff. I am not a huge fan of this bar. It's not that I'm not a huge fan of the bar, I'm not a huge fan of the price of the bar. Now, what a Duffalo bar basically is again, they stretched out the barbell a little bit, made it a little beefier. It can handle a ton of weight. And as you guys can see, we have a happy barbell, sad barbell. Oh, jokes work better when you don't screw them up. So as you guys can see, it is basically a barbell that is bent. Now what this is good for is people who have trouble with their shoulder mobility and things like that. In a squat, a lot of people cannot get super tight underneath the traditional barbell. So this allows them to kind of bring it in a little bit. And I tell you what, you can absolutely pack your upper back super, super tight with this. It's also a great tool for benching because you can get a different range of motion than you normally would be able to. And secondly, it does add a certain amount of stability. When you walk a squat out, you will feel a little bit of tremble. When you're benching, you will absolutely feel some shake. So pretty good for that. However, I'd rather see you go with something like an earthquake bar or a whatever those shaky bars are called. I have one, but I'd rather see you go with that than this. For the only reason is that this has, I don't know what the price is at now, but when I bought it, I believe it was around the $600 or $700 price range. I originally bought it for a friend who actually had the same exact shoulder surgery that I did. However, both of us coming out of it barely used this thing. We mainly relied on the SSB. So would I recommend it? Probably not unless you have a strong, strong yearning for this. Again, I love Chris Duff and I love what he does. I respect him so much. However, unless this thing cost around like $200, then yeah, I'd probably pass. All right guys, and finally, this is called a spider bar. Now, it looks very similar to an SSB because it has a camber, except you see this big step down, which this way you load the plates down here. Great addition for bands and things like that. The handles up front are a little bit longer than an SSB. Now, the feel is different than SSB because the weights are actually set lower than an SSB where the weights would be up here. I find that this kind of holds the weight a little bit lower. I feel like the SSB, you're more top heavy, which gives me more fight in the squat, which is exactly why I use SSB. I want to make the movement harder. This definitely does make the movement harder. I will say that these pads, this is a piece from Elite FTS, and these pads are amazing. I will say they bury the Rogue pads 10,000 times over. However, the bar itself, I don't know how I feel about it. Like I said, I do most of this type of work, one of these types of bars with an SSB. So for me personally, if I had to do it again, I would not pick this up because it's too similar to the SSB. I either would have chosen one or the other. Personally, I would go with the SSB. However, guys like Brian Shaw and Andy Shadow, who we talk with regularly, they are a bigger fan of this than the SSB. So I guess it depends on what you're doing. Now, I will say most of us who enjoy the SSB a little bit more like to bear our squats very deep. And Andy and Brian tend to use this thing a lot for kind of a higher box squat to get kind of that complete overload, super maximal load weights to kind of use the squat as an assistance exercise for their deadlift. So is it worth it to me? yeah, if you have the money. If you don't have the money and you had to choose between this and an SSB, I would go with SSB. But again, that is me personally. There are some very, very reputable people that like this a lot better. I will say for setting up bands, this is a lot better. I will also say that when you're setting up catches or safeties, you can't set them up in a traditional sense because of these bars hanging down. So what we personally do is just stack up plates on the bottom. So if you get stuck on the bottom, you just go all the way to the floor and then hopefully those plates catch those weights before this thing chops your head off. So for me, it's a pass, but for you, it might be a go. That's the problem. That's the problem right there. All right, guys, so there you go. There are 5 common specialty bars that you guys are probably gonna be seeing popping up on all kinds of deals for these Black Friday kind of sales. So it's up to you guys whether you wanna go with anything or not. I can honestly say specialty bars have been an awesome way to take my training kind of to the next level. However, I can also say specialty bars are a great way to drop a bunch of money and not actually use it or don't get any results from it because it didn't work the way they expected it to. Now, your results might be super different than mine, and trust me, there are people that love the Duffalo bar. There are people that love the Spider bar. I'm not saying that's a bad piece of equipment. I'm saying for my personal training, this is what I've got out of it, this is what I use it for, and what I recommend it. So hopefully this gives you guys the opportunity to have a little bit of insight before you go in and drop all that money on something like a specialty bar. But hands down, if it were me, if I had to only choose one, I would absolutely go with SSB with a close second on the Swiss bar, and then after that, probably Texas deadlift bar, and on the Duffalo and Spider bar. If I had to do it again, I'd probably pass. So there you guys go. I hope that helps you out. Now, like I stated in the last video, I personally do have a Black Friday sale going on where you can get a 12-week program for the price of a 10-week program. Just email me if you're interested, and then in the PayPal drop-down menu on my site, there will be a Black Friday option. All you need to do is click on that and you'll get the discount. As far as how long this is gonna last, I honestly don't know because I will be celebrating my family's Thanksgiving on Black Friday. So the longer that I'm tied up there, the more money that you guys will get to save. And also don't forget our friends over at theloyalbrand.com. They're the people who put out our shirts. Those guys will have all of their store on sale. I believe it's 25% off on orders over $100. And the big thing is that it is free international shipping, guys. For those of you who always say that you wish that there were international shipping, stuff like that, they are biting the bullet on that for you guys. So if you do want to take advantage, now be the time because that does not come out very often at all. Go to theloyalbrand.com, check them out. If you want to check anything out, that's great. I really, really appreciate that. But that's it for me today, guys. I thank you so much for spending a little bit of your holiday with me. I hope you guys had an awesome Thanksgiving if it's something you celebrate. If it isn't something you celebrate, just take the time to be thankful for the awesome people and the awesome opportunities and just the awesome things that are just surrounding you everywhere in life. You'd never know how good you have it until it's not there anymore. So guys, hug the people you love, count your blessings, focus on things you do have, not things you don't have. I will catch up with you later in the week. Until I do, go out to something amazing in your lives. Keep working hard, people. Be nice to each other. Be careful when you spend all that money this weekend. Good luck.